It's I call this meeting to order. This is the Platting Board. It's November 7th, 2012, and it's 6:30 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Lendl Story.
Here.
Steve Abel.
Here.
Ken Fuller.
Here.
Jody Moses. Daniel Young.
Present.
Brent Cole.
Here.
Anthony Kane.
Here.
Trevor Edmondson.
We have a quorum. There's 6 of us on the board. Are there any agenda changes for tonight? No. May I have a motion to approve the action summaries dated October 3rd? Mr. Kange and the second, Mr. Cole. Is there any discussion or objection? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is special order of business disclosures. Are there any disclosures tonight? Mr. Fuller.
Mr. Chair, on case S11954-1, the petitioner doesn't appear here, but I saw it on the screen here. It's First National Bank and Paul Ingram. And I feel I can be objective, but I've known Paul since high school. So.
Thank you. So you're disclosing that you've known Paul since high school, and it's not, you don't believe this is going to affect your opinion, and you have no financial interest in this matter?
No. And I haven't in years, I haven't done anything directly with Paul, no.
Thank you. May I have a positive motion directing Mr. Fuller to participate, please? Mr. Cole, and second by Mr. Abel. Mr. Cole, will you speak to your motion?
Yes. Given the testimony from Mr. Fuller that his relationship with the mentioned individual will not affect his objectiveness or reasonableness, and he has no financial interest, I would support this motion to direct him to participate.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Fuller, you're directed to participate. Are there any other disclosures tonight? I have a disclosure in case S11954-1, the terraces phases 6 through 10, I asked to be recused. I have worked directly on this project, both for the bank and as part of the development team. May I have a positive motion, please, directing me to participate? Mr. Cole and Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Cole, will you speak to your motion, please?
Well, Chairman, based on your testimony, I will not be voting for you, and I will to participate given your involvement directly in the project itself.
Thank you. Is there, well, because there's opposition, we need to vote. Is there any discussion first, or any other discussion or comments? Then we'll go to vote. A yes vote directs me to participate. A no vote recuses me. The motion fails, and I will recuse myself from this this case. Thank you. For those who are here for the Terraces subdivision, case S11954-1, there will be a short board tonight. When there's a short board, when there's a short 5-member board or commission and a postponement is offered to and agreed to by the petitioner, they will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case, new public hearing notices, advertising. There is not a hearing scheduled for next month, so it would be the next available hearing. Okay. Sorry, just read the rest. Yes. Okay. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting date within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain. He or she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee, AMCR 21.20.007.A, and the new public hearing date shall be determined by the planning and division. This will put the case in the next available cutoff date or queue as they were submitted as if they were submitting their case for the first time. Is the petitioner here tonight for Terraces subdivision? If so, would they please step forward and let us know if you'd like to postpone or be heard tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Tony Hoffman. I represent the petitioner. We are not going to ask for postponement tonight. We are going to go ahead with the short board.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at this meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules and procedures. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date of the decision, after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the planning division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. We will now have our first case, and I would like to have staff's presentation, and that is for F1A, case S11955-1, Saunders subdivision, tracks B2 and B3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposed subdivision will subdivide one lot into 2 lots. There are no vacations or variances requested. The only reason why this plat is before the board is because there's a requirement that if something is subdivided within the previous 4 years, that it automatically comes to the Platting Board. This petition site is located on the southwest corner of 36th Avenue and Old Seward Highway. The main issue with this plat is the need to extend sewer service to the tract that is platting away from existing sewer lines. Therefore, the department recommends condition of approval number 2 to provide that mainline extension. The department finds that the proposed plat meets all subdivision design and improvement standards in AMC 2180 and 85 with the conditions as proposed, and we received no public opposition or comment to this plat as of now. So we recommend approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6 in the staff report. I do need to make one change on condition number 2. On page number 5, that should read, entering into a mainline extension with AWU for public sanitary sewer services for tract B2. Erase the word water and insert sanitary sewer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing and seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Will the petitioner please step forward, state your name, spell your last name for us, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Board members. I'm Ken Ayers, A-Y-E-R-S, with Lonsberry and Associates, representing the petitioner tonight. This is a pretty straightforward plat.
Mr. Ayers, before you start, would you like to reserve any time for rebuttal?
Sure, I'll reserve 1 minute.
1 minute? Okay, go ahead. Proceed.
We have no objections to staff conditions as recommended, and be happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me. My microphone was off. You have 9 minutes and 55 seconds for rebuttal. Are there questions of the petitioner or petitioner's representative? No? So, sure. Mr. Kinch. Thank you.
Is there any objections or concerns with any of the department's recommendations? You're okay with those?
Through the chair, Mr. Kane, yes, with that change, it should be sanitary sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now open this up to the public. Is there anybody wishing to testify in this matter? Anybody at all? Please step forward and be heard or lose your opportunity. I see nobody stepping forward. Public, would you like to use any of your time for rebuttal? So the petitioner's representative is gesturing no. So I'm going to close the public hearing. The matter now rests with the board. In the case of S11955-1, may I have a positive motion? Mr. Kange, would you state your motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S11955-1, Saunders subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6, making note of condition 2 as amended by staff to reflect sanitary sewer as opposed to water services.
Thank you. And your motion is seconded by Mr. Abel. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this case, I tend to vote in favor of this. It appears that the proposed plat meets subdivision design, improvement standards, and frankly, with no public opposition, I tend to vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I too plan on supporting this motion for the same reasons that the plat appears to meet all subdivision and design and improvement standards, and there's no public opposition. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. The next case is F1B, case S11953-1, Municipal Industrial Subdivision, Track C-2A. May I have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of 2 tracts into 1 tract with right-of-way vacation of North Wrangell Street. Petition site is located north of East 3rd Avenue and west of Reeve Boulevard. Access to the site is from Wrangell Street. Existing tract C2 is zoned I1SL, Light Industrial District with special limitations. Existing tract 28A is zoned I1 Light Industrial District. The special limitations for tract C2 require non-public hearing, site plan review if the access to the site is taken from Commercial Drive and 3rd Avenue. Access to the site is to remain from Wrangell Street via Viking Drive to the north. Wrangell Street is fully constructed to industrial standards with a 36-foot back of curb to back of curb with roll curb and gutter north of Spar Avenue. With this action, the petitioner is requesting vacation of Wrangell Street. The petitioner is proposing to vacate that 50 by 470-foot portion of Wrangell Street between the existing tract C2 and existing tract 28A. The vacation request has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. In 1999, a request was made to the Platting Board for vacation of the same portion of Wrangell Street. That petition was approved. However, the 18-month approval expired and the vacation was never finalized. In 2005, a second request was made to vacate that same portion of Wrangell Street. At that time, the state DOT was undergoing a large redesign project in the area with Glen Highway and Seward Highway connections. Because of this project, it was determined that the vacation of Wrangell Street was premature and that it could not be said with certainty that the right-of-way was of no value to the municipality of Anchorage. Thus, that request was denied. The Glen Highway / Seward Highway connection still exists conceptually in the 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Plan as it did in 2005. However, staff understands that this project is not of high priority as it once was. There are no immediate plans for this project, and it is uncertain when the project is to begin. The State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities has reviewed this vacation request and has no comments. Furthermore, the Municipal Traffic Division has reviewed the vacation request and has expressed no objection. As there are no current plans for a connection and reviewing agencies have expressed no objections to this request, this right-of-way appears to be access to municipal need. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of this plat and vacation request subject to standards conditions 1 through 7 on pages 8 and 9 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Kange.
Could you please clarify where the public comment was, or if you could give it to us in summation? I didn't see it. Maybe I glanced over it in the 100 and some odd pages. Please. Or maybe just clarify if it was a positive or negative comment.
Through the chair, Mr. Kange, the comment from the public was on page 99 of your staff packet. And I'm not sure that it's negative or positive.
Are there any other questions of staff? Hearing and seeing none, we'll open this to the public hearing. Will the petitioner's representative please step forward? Again, I ask you to state your name for the record, spell your last name, and
Good evening. I'm Ken Ayers, AYERS with Lonsberry and Associates, representing the petitioner tonight. Again, this is a pretty straightforward plat with a vacation. Staff's analysis shown it's in excess of the public need. Physically, it would be impossible to connect Wrangell Street to 3rd Avenue just due to the topography. The area is currently basically being used for on-site circulation by the property owner, and it would be better served to be on the tax rolls, and that's what they'd like to do with it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
thank you. You have 9 minutes and 27 seconds left for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any members of the public that wish to testify in this matter? Any members, anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none, would you like to use, Mr. Ayers, would you like to use any of your time for rebuttal and use motioning no? I will now close the public hearing. The matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion for this case, please? There's going to be two separate motions, one for A, approval of the request for vacation, and the other one would be approval for the plat. Mr. Cole, would you make your motion, please?
In the case of S11953-1, Municipal Industrial Subdivision, I would move to grant the proposal to vacate 50 feet by 470 foot portion of the Wrangell Street between existing track C2 and track 28 as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you. And Mr. Kane seconds. Mr. Cole, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes. Municipal Code 2115-130 sets forth the basis for approval of vacations. Under the testimony we've received today, the analysis of staff and the information contained in paragraph 7, I find that the area being vacated will not be decreased. That it doesn't have value as the way it is, and therefore I think that the vacation request is proper.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I too will be supporting this motion, and the requirement for approval of vacation is that the area being vacated must be shown to either be of value to the municipality unless proven otherwise. The burden of proof shall lie entirely with the petitioner, and staff has reported that a request was made and approved in 1999, and that 18-month approval expired, so we are now reapproving the same request. There are no immediate plans for a project in this area. It's uncertain when a project is to begin, and this vacation request has been reviewed by the DOT, who has no comments. The municipal traffic engineer has expressed no objection, and the right-of-way appears to be in excess of the municipal need, which it meets the requirement of the approval ramifications, so I will support this. Is there any other discussion or findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? This motion passes, and I would now ask for a motion for the Part B. Mr. Cole, would you make your motion, please?
Yes, I would move to approve the plat for 18 months, for the approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions contained 1 through 7 on pages 8 and 9 of our packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is case S11956-1, Abbott Co-Housing Subdivision, Tracts A and B. May we have staff's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposed subdivision will subdivide 3 lots into 2 tracts and includes the vacation of a 15-foot road right-of-way easement that runs through the sort of the middle of the property and a 33-foot right-of-way reservation along the western property boundary. The plat also dedicates the southerly 60 feet along Abbott that is currently an easement for highway purposes and 30 feet along the western property boundary that adjoins the constructed Little Brook Street. The petition site is located north of Abbott Road, generally between Little Brook Street and King David Drive. The petition site is zoned R1 and is surrounded by R1 single-family residential development to the northeast and west. There is a house on existing lot 97 that is currently served by well and septic. However, both the proposed tracts will have access to public water and sewer. A proposed condition of approval requires that the applicant resolve the need to document the existing on-site systems. While this decision before you is only regarding the plat, the department has received a conditional use application for a residential planned unit development for Tract A, and the Planning and Zoning Commission will review the conditional use application and the proposed site plan during a public hearing. We have received 3 comments. One is in the staff packet on page 40, and there were 2 additional laid on the table. There were a couple of concerns, perhaps, about the proposed housing types that may be on Tract A, but that is something that will be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and those comments can be incorporated during that decision-making process. Both proposed tracts will have physical and legal access. Regarding the vacation requests, first I'll address the 15-foot right-of-way, road right-of-way easement. There is currently no road or pedestrian path through this easement, and all surrounding property has legal and physical access to publicly dedicated right-of-way. This easement serves no public purpose, as an excessive municipal need, and reviewing agencies, including the traffic engineer in the state, DOT, had either no comment or no objection to this vacation request. Second, addressing the vacation of the 33 feet on the western property boundary. The property directly north and west of this petition site was subdivided in 2001, and during that platting action, they Spruce Street to the north was vacated and replaced with Little Brook Street and Spruce Brook Street. So all of the surrounding property now has legal and physical access to publicly dedicated right-of-way. There is currently a driveway in the reservation which serves the lot that we're discussing, Lot 97. This right-of-way reservation is an excessive municipal need, and access and circulation within tracks A and B can be determined at the time of development. Reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to the vacation requests. There was one comment that was concerned about the utility companies having access, if that vacation, what that would mean for the utility companies. And if the utility companies need easements, they will review for that and sign off on the plat and require those easements. So the department recommends approval of both vacation requests and approval of the plat, subject to conditions number 1 through 7 on pages 9 and 10 of the staff report.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Would the petitioner's representative please step forward? I'm now opening the public hearing. Would you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Ben Hron, Hron.
And do you wish to reserve any time for a rebuttal?
Yes.
How much time would you like to reserve?
Well, as much as I have left.
Okay, you can use your remaining time. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we have no objections to the conditions of approval by the staff conditions of approval. The only comment we do have is the house that's currently on proposed tract A is served by city sewer and not a septic system. So providing an on-site COSA for that, I don't believe is necessary.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, you have 9 minutes and 32 seconds left for rebuttal.
Okay.
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody wishing to testify in this matter tonight? Anybody at all? Do you wish to use any of your, are you going to testify? Oh, please step forward. State your name for the records.
My name's Marilyn Pierce-Bulger, last name Pierce-Bulger. I'm a homeowner in the Valley Brook Circle cul-de-sac adjacent to this piece of property, and I'm also one of the members of the Ravens Roost co-housing community that's planning this development. I wanted to just share my perspective as a homeowner who's lived in this cul-de-sac for 3 years. This piece of property that we're talking about is I think a beautiful piece of property. It's treed, it's wooded. I think it's appreciated by the surrounding neighborhood, and I have felt for quite some time now that I was hoping that whoever did the development on this piece of property would be mindful of the surrounding neighborhoods, and this was prior to my actually getting involved with this process. I heard about the co-housing effort last spring and became involved in May of this year. And so my husband and I are now active participants in the process and have had an influence in the site design, the site layout plan, and other things with the mindset that we recognize our neighbors are concerned and that we want to be mindful and respectful of the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Please step forward.
My name is Mark Malagodi, Malagodi. I'm also a homeowner on Spruce Brook Street, about 3 doors in from where there's development. And one of the reasons I moved into the area was that it was removed from Abbott Road. There wasn't noise. You couldn't hear it from Abbott Road. I was hoping it would stay reasonably quiet, that there wouldn't be a large development in the area. So just wanted to state my feelings.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify tonight in this matter? If there are others wishing to testify, will you please come to the front now and sit in the front? Go ahead.
My name's Mandy LaRose, Larose. I also live in Little Brook as well, and I feel the same as Mark in the fact that I'm not really, when I moved to the area, single-family homes, nice single-family homes, moderate to some pretty expensive homes. Matter of fact, right there on Abbott, probably 3 blocks from where they're talking about doing this, there's $1 million home sitting right there on Abbott Street. And the thought of them going ahead and putting in a planned community condo project, row 3 to 6 units, right behind all of our single-family properties, just really disturbs me. I feel like the value of our properties are going to come down because of it. I feel like it's going to increase more traffic that comes in and out of that area already. Since they've changed the pattern of traffic with Elmore coming in, it actually has increased the traffic pattern through Little Brook way more than we ever had before. They've put speed bumps in, still tons of traffic coming through. And I just feel like putting something like this in an area where there's nice single-family homes into row area communities where you may have more renters in an area that's not willing to take care of an area. And I just think this is a really bad idea for Little Brook and that surrounding area. And I think there's other places that they can think about putting something like this. This area is zoned for single-family properties for a reason, and I think they need to keep it that way. I realize this isn't about zoning for single-family right now, but I just want to get my comments out about that project and what's going on.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Peggy Kelly, and I live on King David Drive. I've been there about 16 years. I've looked at both the parcels on both sides of King David Drive, which I back up to the one on the north side, which is only 4 acres. I know that property, I'm very good friends with the neighbor there, and she vacillates on whether to sell it, and I'm a realtor, and she would probably get me to do it when the time comes, but I don't really want to see it go because I have trees in my backyard. The plan one of the builders in town did for her subdivision was 22 houses. And I think that that's excessive, but that's what the builders do in this town. So something small like this seems like it would be a nice, I would like to see it more of a senior complex, but it would be a nice diversion from what we've had in other areas of town. I'd like to see it happen on the other side when Betty Ray gets ready to do it, but she's 88. I don't think she'll do it soon. But thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this matter?
My name is Bruce Roberts, R-O-B-E-R-T-S. I'm a resident in the area within 5 blocks or so. I've lived in the community since 1986, so I've seen a lot of the developments that have come into place during that time. And I'm actually a member of this co-housing development as well. And I believe the acreage, which is about 6.7 acres, would fit about 50 single-family homes if it was traditionally developed. And what we're proposing is 30 to 35 units, where the units are clustered in a part of the property, and the majority of the property would still remain green or wooded or open fields. So that we feel that this is a reasonable development of the property. That's my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Excuse me. For the record, are you testifying on behalf of the petitioner?
Yes, I'm in favor of the petition.
So we're going to have to subtract your time from the time remaining for rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there anyone else wishing to testify? Hearing and seeing none, would the petitioner's representative wish to use any of your time for rebuttal? You have 8 minutes remaining.
Okay. I would just like to say that, I mean, the developments that have happened to the west as well.
You state your name again for the
I'm sorry, Ben Huron, H-R-O-N. This case isn't about the planned development of the site. This is about the platting action. And I know they're tied into each other, but I just wanted to note that the developments that are to the west as well as to the north once looked like this parcel did. And the trees are all wiped out, and houses were put in, which is great, but what's going to happen here isn't going to look like those. I mean, there's going to be trees left over, and it's not going to be houses right on top of each other with no trees, so there will still be woods there, and it will have a different feel to it. I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Wait, there's going to be questions. Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative, and Mr. Kange is first?
So I'm just wondering if you could clarify your position with the staff comment, particularly C3, with regard to the on-site water and wastewater services.
Yeah, we received information that they're actually hooked up to public sewer at the house, and they don't. I'm not sure what has happened with the septic that they probably at once had.
So you don't feel that that you'll be using that at all, and it'll be decommissioned, or
Well,
is that the intent?
I don't believe it should be a condition of approval because they don't currently use a septic system at the house.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of the petitioner? Mr. Kange, would you like to ask a question of staff? Go ahead.
I would, Steph, you could just clarify, so if we do make a motion on this, we have some clarity in that C3. Are you familiar with what the petitioner is referring to?
Thank you, through the chair. No, I am not. This is a condition that was proposed from on-site services. The way it's written, it says resolving with on-site services, so there is no inherent requirement in that condition, and I would feel uncomfortable changing that without them understanding what the situation was. If it is on septic and there may need to be documentation of decommissioning, or I'm not exactly sure what all the documentation is that's required from on-site, but they did not have the appropriate documentation for septic or well. So the way it's written, it gives them flexibility to resolve whatever the situation is.
Thank you. Mr. Huron, are you comfortable with resolving that issue?
Yes, I'm comfortable with resolving with on-site.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the petitioner? Hearing and seeing, thank you. Hearing and seeing none, the public hearing portion is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve, please, a positive motion? There are three items to approve. Mr. Kange, would you please make your motion?
In case S11956-1, I move to approve the request to vacate the 15-foot road right-of-way easement on east half of the Lot 98, subject to recording a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Or, well, first, I'm sorry, Mr. Kange, will you speak to your motion, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And although I appreciate a lot of the neighbors' concerns and comments with regard to keeping this area, in fact, I live or just moved from right up the road from here. So I understand your concerns about having high density in the area, but again, this and what we're approving here is really the platting process. So I do take that into consideration. I do tend to vote in favor of this. It appears that vacating this right-of-way easement would be beneficial. I do believe it would help limit the driveways. There's no objections of any of the departments, and it appears to be in excess of the municipal needs this time. So, Mr. Chair, I do tend to vote in favor of this.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or findings?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I also intend to vote in favor of this motion. Based on the staff's analysis, the testimony by the staff and the petitioner, I concur with the vacation request and that it conforms to the municipal platting or vacation policy, and would like to incorporate the standards and the finding of fact addressed in the staff report into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Are there any other comments or questions? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes. May I have a motion for Part B, please? Mr. Kange, would you make your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, in case S11956-1, I move to approve the request to vacate the 33-foot right-of-way reservation along the western boundary of Lot 97 north of Littlebrook Street and the remaining 3 feet along Littlebrook Street after 30 feet is dedicated as right-of-way, subject to recording a suitable plat within 18 months of approval.
Thank you. And may I have a second, please? Mr. Fuller, thank you. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I tend to vote in favor of this motion for the reasons stated. Before the right-of-way reservation appears to be in excess of municipal needs, as stated in the staff report and fact and findings based on the testimony of the petitioner and staff.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or other findings? I have a question of staff. Has a traffic analysis been done for this plat?
Mr. Chair, right now it's just one. Right now it's just 2 tracks. If when the PUD application comes in, if there's a traffic analysis necessary based on the number of units that they are providing, that would be addressed through that process.
Thank you. And at this time, there's we've heard from the public that there's potential traffic problems. What's your opinion on the potential traffic problems from this development? Maybe I can rephrase my question. Do you see a potential increase that's detrimental in traffic?
Right now, as is, this development could, based on its R1 zoning district, by right could only, for a housing development, be developed with 2 single-family houses.
Thank you. There any other discussion? I'm going to support this motion, and I want to state that I find that there has been a traffic issue brought up by the public, and that staff is saying that there's only 2 houses are being approved, and there's also time when the PUD is approved for a traffic analysis if it's necessary, but it doesn't appear that this is going to be a detrimental impact. So I intend to support this motion also. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a motion for Part C, approval of plat for 18 months? Mr. Kange.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, case S11956-1. I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 7 on pages 8, 9, and 10 of our staff packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Abel seconds. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find that the facts supported in this case by staff, public testimony, and the petitioner's comments with regard to each of, well, particularly item 3, but to each of these recommendations supports the approval of this plat for 18 months, subject to clarifying these conditions or fixing some of the conditions in the plat notes, etc.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Are there any additional findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, this motion passes. Before we start our next case, any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the Board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision, and interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or an appeal of the Board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. I am now going to recuse myself.
And if we could take a break to change this.
And we're going to take a 2-minute break to switch over the system. Thank you.
We'll reconvene the meeting of November 7th. The next case on the agenda is S11954-1, the terraces phases 6 through 10, lots 31 through 80, block 3, lots 13 through 55, block 4, and greenbelt tracks F1, G1, H1, and I1. Can we have the staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Please forgive me if I get a little bit long-winded. This particular case and subdivision has kind of a storied past, so if I get a little bit long-winded, sorry about that. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of 2 tracts of land into 93 lots and 4 greenbelt tracts with variances from AMC 2180-300D, lot width to depth ratio, and AMC 2180-300G, design standards, length of a flagpole portion of a lot. This proposal is a continuation of the terraces subdivision approved in 2003. The petition site is located east of Lake Otis Parkway, south of East 112th Avenue, and west of Kane Street. In 2002, the previous owner applied for a rezoning of the petition site from R6 to PC Planned Community District. This rezoning to PC was withdrawn by the petitioner on July 21st, 2002, directly prior to the public hearing in front of the Assembly. In late 2002, the petitioner reapplied for a rezoning of this site from R6 to R1 and R7 in order to assist in mitigating the concerns of the community that stemmed from the original request. The original rezone petition for this site, which was submitted, like I said, in earlier 2002 and subsequently withdrawn, requested a density of approximately 427 units. During the Assembly hearing for the new R1 and R7 zoning, however, the petitioner agreed to leave the area abutting Kane Street to be R6, thus negating the need for the R7 area. The final approved R1SL zoning dropped the R7 request, with the eastern portion remaining R6. The reason for this zoning was to provide a buffer against Kane Street and the private airstrip to the east. With this platting action, the petitioner is proposing split zone lots along the easternmost property boundary. As a condition of approval, the petitioner will be required to rezone to make the zoning boundary coincident with the lot edges prior to recording plats for phases 7, 8, and 10. As I noted, there are special limitations on this property. There are several of note, and I'll go through each one. Neighborhood parks. The development shall feature one lot of at least 10,000 square feet to be used for a neighborhood park. This area is to be under the control and management of the Homeowners Association. Tract L, created within Phase 2 in 2007, is designed and intended for use as a neighborhood park. The design of the lot is intended to allow 10,000 square feet for the park and the remainder for a water booster station required for this development. Greenbelt areas. Greenbelt areas provided at the periphery of the development shall meet or exceed the transition and buffering standards for buffering adjacent to urban and residential lots in AMC 2145-200. This area will be under control and management of the Homeowners Association. The petitioner is dedicating tract E1-A2 as open space along the east and south property boundary. The tract will provide trail connections to Gander Street, Kane Street, and along the bluff north of the petition site. This greenbelt tract will be included in the homeowner's documents as being under the ownership, control, and maintenance of the Homeowners Association. Mix of residential lot sizes in the R1SL district. No more than 50% of individual private lots may have a lot area of less than 7,000 square feet and a lot width of less than 60 feet. Currently, there are 142 platted lots, of which 73 are less than 60 feet in width. With this approval, there will be 235 lots total, of which 115 lots are less than 60 feet wide. Pedestrian access. A pedestrian access to Kane Street shall be provided. With this proposed subdivision, pedestrian access is being provided to Kane Street via Greenbelt Tract E1-A2. Access to the petition site will be from 2 access points located along Lake Otis Parkway. During the rezoning process, there was considerable community opposition to allowing a secondary access onto Kane Street. The traffic impact analysis reviewed at the time recommended approval of the TIA with primary access from Lake Otis with the secondary access from Kane Street. However, the Assembly approval of the rezoning did not require this access to Cange and accepted a concept plan showing instead two accesses onto Lake Otis. The interior streets of this subdivision will continue the existing design of phases 1 through 5 to include 33-foot wide paved streets from back of curb to back of curb, type 2 rolled curb, and curb and gutter with 5-foot wide detached asphalt walkway on both sides of the street. AWU water and sanitary sewer lines are located in Morgan Loop with both north and south sides available to this development. With this platting action, the petitioner will be required to enter into mainline extensions agreement with AWU. I'll address the variance requests now. Variances are requested from AMC 2180-300D, design standards for lot width to depth ratio for lots 71, 72 of Block 3, lots 15 and 21 through 22, 47 through 49, 51 through 53, Block 4, and AMC 2180-300G design standards length of a flagpole portion of a lot for lot 33 of Block 3. There are 4 standards that must be met for granting of variances. I'll go through each one. Standard number 1, staff finds this standard be met for both variance requests. There are special conditions that exist on the property that are unique. There are also special and unique conditions placed on this property in terms of the design standards required under the special limitations for this petition site. In regards to the width to depth ratio, the special limitations required separated sidewalks and landscaping that is more significant than that contained in the code. The lots meet and in many ways, or in many cases, exceed the minimum lot width requirement. However, in order to meet the special limitations as well as the concept plan that is part of the intent of the rezoning through the hearing process, the lots need a 40-foot front yard setback with 20 feet being private walkway and landscape easement and the other 20 feet being a building setback. With regards to the flagpole that is requested for lot 33, block 3, which exceeds the maximum length of a flagpole portion in the urban district by 39.5 feet. The reason for this, for that proposed lot, proposed lot exceeds that requirement is due to the looping nature of the roads, which was required for traffic calming purposes and the need to allow a more efficient use and design of the property. Standard number 2, staff finds this standard to be met for both variances. The granting of these variances will not be detrimental to the public. The lots are wholly buildable, and the variances provide for the ability to meet not only the special limitations but also the intent of the rezoning and for the implementation of the concept plans provided to the Commission, Assembly, and the surrounding residents to address and mitigate their concerns. Standard number 3, staff finds this standard be met for both variances. Granting of the requested variances will not have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of the subdivision regulations. Rather, they have the effect of allowing the subdivision to meet the intent of the special limitations imposed by the rezoning. The steep slopes, additional setbacks, and street design standards require a unique design. Standard number 4, staff finds this standard to be met for both variances. Undue hardship would result from for the petitioner from strict compliance with the subdivision regulations. Both variances requested with this platting action have been granted during previous phases of this subdivision. Granting of the variances for phases 6 through 10 would allow the petitioner to continue development of this subdivision as it was originally approved while conforming to the special limitations imposed by the rezone. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the variances from AMC 2180-300D, from AMC 2180-300G, approval of the phasing plan, and approval of the plat for 60 months subject to conditions 1 through 15 on pages 15, 16, 17, and 18 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions for staff? Mr. Kange.
Hear me? Could you hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Help walk me through that real quick. I mean, is that not an issue?
No, it's not an issue, and in fact, the petitioner's representative provided me with the numbers, the calcs, to ensure me that that special limitation was being met.
Okay.
So I'm satisfied with that.
As long as you're comfortable. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll now open for public hearing. Can we have the petitioner's representative?
Good evening, Mr. Co-Chairman and members of the board. My name is Tony Hoffman. I work for the Boutte Company, and with me tonight is Dave Grenier, the project engineer with Triad Engineering. We represent the owner and petitioner tonight, First National Bank. We appreciate the presentation that staff has provided. There's a couple things I want to add. I believe he laid on your desk two amendments I want to make to our plat as designed, and go into those, and they're pretty minor, but he did not. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and go into my presentation first, and then we'll talk about the small changes that I'm talking about. In 2003, the original, as staff stated, the original plat was approved by Planning and Zoning along with the rezone. In 2008, at about 50% completion, the original developer basically went bankrupt. The land went over to the present owner, First National Bank of Anchorage, or now First National Bank of Alaska. The development proceeded for 2 more extensions for a total of 8 years to the present state. It's currently about 50% complete. This plat and approval that's before you is basically the same design that was originally approved. This will finish the connectivity of the roads. Right now you have 2 dead-end roads basically, and this will complete the connectivity. It'll connect the water and close the water system, and it'll finalize the storm drain and sewer systems. Additionally, right now, as it is, the east side of the development is, as most of us know, is a gravel pit. There's some unfinished slope work that'll be done on the east side. As the development has progressed from the west side, from Lake Otis to the east, the slopes have been finalized, dressed, cleaned up, and the development has really become a nice development. These lots are larger R1 type lots. And with the building setbacks that we have presented that's in the plan before you, it actually creates a wider streetscape. That's why the original development was planned and approved like that. You don't have a canyon look. The standard setback for R1 is 20 foot, and you're seeing a minimum of 25, in some cases 40-foot setbacks in the proposed development. We kept the same building setback design that was approved by the Planning and Zoning in 2003 because we felt that the development, if you drive through there, it's actually a very good plan, and we did not want to change that. The reality is that site plan, that landscape plan actually runs with the land in our interpretation because it was approved by Planning and Zoning. So we didn't want to change that. Other than that, as far as the plat, I don't really have anything else to add. I think it's pretty straightforward. It is just there's some slight variations to the original plan that are driven by, since 2003, there have been some changes in the municipality's design criteria manual. So we've actually had to change the roads a little bit because of some of the road radiuses. It used to be you could use a 100-foot radius on an internal road, and now we have to use 150. So we had to kind of widen the road radius some. There's another issue that has come up. The design criteria manual in 2006 was changed, so you have to have a 14-foot driveway, which means that we cannot have 30-foot wide lots anymore, which is the original approval was for 30-foot lots. And that has created a bit of a problem in our layout, but we can work with it and probably make most of the development work without dropping lots. This is kind of it's a disconnect in the code. When the code says you can have a 30-foot lot frontage and the driveway width is 14 feet, there's a rule in code that says you have to have a minimum of 2 fifths. The 14-foot doesn't fit inside the 30-foot now. So it's a problem. It's a disconnect. However, we're not going to argue that point. That's one of the staff conditions from traffic that comes in here. This is item 4. We're not going to argue that. However, it's just something I wanted to put on record that we're not very happy about. The only other thing I want to talk about is I have asked staff, and he's presented them to you. There's 2 slight variations to the plat we'd like to present tonight. Based on, the first one is based on the staff condition of the 30-foot lots not being acceptable to traffic. 35-foot wide lots are squeezing us, and we have the greenbelt tracks that we've dedicated as 15-foot, the interconnectivity tracks, we'll call them, the pathway tracks. We're asking and requesting that those get reduced to a 10-foot wide strip. That'll give us 5 feet to work with to maintain the number of lots we have in those areas. If that makes sense, we're going to have to do some shuffling of lot lines to keep our lots, but we believe that the pathway standards 5 feet, 10 feet should be more than adequate to build that pathway inside there. We've run this by planning, and we believe we're acceptable in that. The other slight change we're asking for is one more. It's in the building setback on lot 66, right there on in the cul-de-sac, Shariran Circle. Originally, the first development had 40-foot setbacks along Morgan Loop, as you see on your plat. We're asking to reduce that to 25 feet. Which is still 5 feet more than is required in the zoning. The reason for that is, I think it's pretty obvious when you look at that lot. I'm not quite sure why that was designed like that originally. However, when we really looked at the building pads, it's almost unbuildable. So if we bring it back to 25 feet, it's still 5 feet further than and deeper than the 20-foot setback, and it kind of mirrors what's across that cul-de-sac in lot 60. And if you look in the other cul-de-sac, both sides have got the 25-foot configuration as well. So we feel it's not something that's... We thought about this when we made the original application. We didn't want to try to sneak this by because this was what was on the original plan, but after we really started looking at it, it's just not going to work. So we'd like that consideration at this time. Other than that, I think I want to retain the time I have, unless you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner's representative? Mr. Kane?
Just one quick question. As it relates to some of the public comment, I understand that this will kind of tie this loop together through, I guess it's Terraces Phase 2 and Phase 5. Where does this traffic go to? Refresh my memory.
Lake Otis. There's two exits onto Lake Otis. This is what was originally approved in the TIA and approved by the traffic department in 2003. We're not changing anything. We're not trying to go out to Canes. There was major opposition when we even thought about that. So,
any other questions for the petitioner's representative?
Just one more quick question. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I didn't see much comment from the traffic department. Has there been any study with these additional units?
The overall build out was already approved, and in the original design there was a TIA done for the impact on Lake Otis in 2003. We're not changing density. Actually, we're dropping 4 units from the original density that was approved in the TIA for this 2-exit concept.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the...
Is that a good answer? Dave?
Seeing none, is there any questions for staff? You have 2 minutes and 57 seconds left for rebuttal. Now we'll open the hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone that would wish to speak? Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Laura Bonner, B-O-N-N-E-R, and I've lived in the area for a long time. I live actually right above Amy Circle, the existing planning, and the reason I brought my water bottle here is because after our storm in September, I emptied all my water bottles from my well, and this is a lot oranger than it was ever done before. What has gone on is they keep moving a pond. When I talked to Dave Whitfield today, he said he didn't know that there was a pond that was there. And my concern is the quality of the water in my well, what they're doing with that drainage. I know that they've got, they're on the storm drain system that connects to the manhole in that. I understand that. My concern is that development, I feel, has affected my on-site services, my well. I've lived there since 1970 at Lot 1, Holman Acres, on 112th. Since 1977, and have seen a lot of changes. I don't oppose the development, but I really feel that they have breached the water table. I think that the people that are going to be moving here are going to have problems. And I'm also concerned for well, first, the pond was on the latest pond. There's been several over the years, but the latest one was on about lots 85 through 88. And they kind of filled that in, but it just moved the pond over to the new proposed lots 74, 73, and 72. And it kind of shows up on this map. This, I have it on page 23, but this area right here, that is actually a pond. They're ice skating on it now, and that could be a problem for the development. But primarily I'm concerned about all the orange stuff in my well water, that I just filled these up. I haven't had that problem before. So I haven't had an opportunity to check with my neighbors.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Mr. Cange.
Ma'am, thank you for your testimony today. Have you had your water tested recently?
No, in fact, I went to talk to planning about this Tuesday, I think, and Mr. Whitfield was out, or Monday, I guess, and I wasn't able to come back. When I talked to him, he suggested I talk to Deb, and excuse me if I mispronounce her name, Wakamfoos or something like that, and she suggested a lab in town for me to do it, and what I can do, where I can go from there. But I've lived there a long time, so I'm aware of the erosion that has happened around the pit, in what they've done to restore it. A lot of the areas keep washing out. I have to say that there are a lot of people who very much enjoy walking around the rim of the pit. I still call it the pit. I can't help it. Walk around it and enjoying the views. And so I'm glad to see that in their plan they've included pedestrian access to that, because that's important.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify in this case? Seeing none, would the petitioner's representative like to use their last 2 minutes, 57 seconds?
Mr. Co-Chairman, my name is Dave Grenier, Grenier, and I've been the project engineer for this project from the beginning. And the adjacent resident is correct. There has always been a pond, if you want to call it that, on the property. And what that is basically the drainage area of the eastern part of this project. We've kept the snow melt and the runoff on site without having an outfall. And the idea there is to go ahead and let the snow melt and the rainfall infiltrate without running down the already existing development. There is a storm drain system that is on site on all of the development. The western portion had footing drains, but as we progress to the east, we no longer need the footing drains to handle the drainage as far as the foundations go. So the water that you see is basically from the runoff, from snowmelt and from rainwater. The site has been stabilized to watershed management's standards. The slopes were hydro-seeded, and basically that's the scenario right now. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Oh, sorry. We'd like to close the public hearing, and the matter now rests with the board. Can I have a positive motion? We'll have 4 different motions for this case. Mr. Kange.
In case S11954-1, Terraces phases 6 through 10, to subdivide 2 tracts of land into 93 lots, 4 greenbelt tracts with subdivision variances from AMC 21.80.300D. Where am I? I lost my track. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm 15. Thank you. I move to approve the variance from AMC 21-80-300D with regard to the lot depth, width to depth ratio for lots 71 and 72 of Block 3 and lots 15, 21, and 22, 47 through 49, 51 through 53 of Block 4.
Can we have a second to the motion? Mr. Fuller seconds the motion. Can you speak to the motion and provide findings?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to this, I tend to vote in favor of this motion. I feel that these 4 conditions for this variance have been met. Findings, in fact, based on testimony from both the petitioner and petitioner's representative with regard to the special limitations of the sidewalk and landscaping. It's found in the staff comments and in our report that it's more significant than code. I feel that in the second case of granting this variance, it will not be detrimental to public safety or welfare based on not public testimony, but agency comments, in fact, in our packet, and reported by staff through their testimony and comment. With regard to variance, the same variance, the third standard I felt has been met. It doesn't appear to nullify the intent or the purpose of the subdivision or these regulations. And I also feel it would cause an undue hardship to stick to these requirements through these specific lots based on plat map, the petitioner's testimony, and staff comment.
Thank you, Mr. Kange. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion or provide findings? Mr. Cole.
I think that I would just say that I'm not nearly as convinced that the requirements of the variance, width and depth, have been met. But given the fact that this has been approved before and because there was limited opposition, I think I'll vote in favor of it, but I'm not totally convinced with the showing that there's an undue hardship or that there are such special circumstances about this that require these. But I intend to vote in favor of it anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the motion or provide findings? Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion is approved. Can we have a positive motion for item B? Mr. Fuller.
Yes, in the Chair, in the case of S11954-1, Terrace Subdivision, I move that we approve the variance from AMC 21.80.300G, length of the flagpole portion of lot for Lot 33, Block 3.
Mr. Kange seconds. Mr. Fuller, could you speak to your motion?
Yes, the special circumstances of the road configurations that were provided make this necessary for this extra length of the flagpole lot. This granting the specific variance will not be detrimental to the public. Number 3, it will not nullify the intent of the regulations, and undue hardship would exist if it wasn't granted. I intend to support that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would want to speak to the motion or provide findings? Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion is approved. Moving on to the approval of the phasing plan, can we have a positive motion? Mr. Fuller.
Again, in case S11954-1, Terrace Subdivision, I move for the approval of the phasing as recommended or as requested by the petitioners.
Is there a second? Mr. Kange seconds the motion. Mr. Fuller, can you speak to the motion, please?
Based on the history of this project and the completion would be beneficial to all parties concerned, and the necessity for phasing some kind of time that are necessary, I believe that is worth supporting. I will support it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion is approved. Moving on to the approval of the plat, can I have a positive motion?
Mr. Chair, just a point of order of clarification, maybe. The changes that the petitioner requested, and this through the chair to staff, the changes that the petitioner is recommending, those coincide with this approval of the phasing plan, or are they part of the plat conditions? Is that what it is? Okay.
Through the chair, Mr. Kange, that can be done under the plat approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion for the plat approval?
Before we do that, can we ask a question of staff?
Certainly. Mr. Cole?
I apologize. I think I messed up here, but does staff have a position as to the two proposed changes that are in the letter that you just handed to us?
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to these changes after last hearing. No, I don't oppose any of the changes. Mr. Hoffman and myself have discussed this, I think, at length, and we're both in agreement that the changes are appropriate.
Thank you. I apologize.
Can we have a motion? Mr. Cole?
I would move to approve proposed plat subject to approval within 60 months and subject to meeting the conditions set forth in 1 through 15 on pages 15 through 18 of our packet, as modified by the letter submitted to us dated 11/7/2012 today.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Cole, can you speak to the motion?
Well, as I stated before, this essentially has been approved in the past. Voiced some concerns on some of the things, but believe that it would be, with the testimony that we have in front of us and the conditions that are being put in place for this development, that it meets municipal ordinances, and because staff approves, I'm willing to follow that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Can we have a better clarification on the changes that are contained in the letter that you referenced?
Yeah. Just a minute. Well, you know, that's just one of the problems when you get these at the last minute. I'm not sure where you modify it. Do we add conditions, or do we modify conditions that are already there?
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, I believe you don't need to add any conditions. I think you just need to make make findings that you're adopting the changes as proposed by the petitioner, and maybe clarify the actual changes that are to be made. So maybe, state that lot 66, block 3.
I can read that.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what we're looking for there.
Okay, well, I'm still not sure how it works into the conditions. It seems like it must be an addition, but moving to...
You can make it a drafting change if you'd like. I mean...
60 months subject to resolving the conditions 1 through 15, as I noted before, and in addition, reducing the building setback for lot 66, block 3, along Morgan Loop to 25 feet. Also, reducing the width of the pathway, green belt tracks in the development GBT G1 F1, it's like I1 to 10 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the motion? Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections, this motion is approved. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the condition is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the Board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or B, an appeal of the Board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30.
Are there any appearance requests? No. Are there any persons to be heard tonight? No. Reports, I would like to report from the chair that it has been brought to my attention that what was it we were reviewing? The abbreviated plats action summaries that we've been reviewing for the last countless number of years, that we actually have no authority to to make determinations on those, decisions on those. And so we are still going to get those for our information purposes, but we do not have to review them. And make a decision on those anymore. Are there any, well, that's it from the chair. Anything from staff? There's, as my understanding, there's no meeting next month. Has that changed, or?
No, we do not have any public hearing cases for next month, so you guys get the month off.
Okay, so that means we reconvene next year. Are there any other board member comments?
Just one,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. And Dave, maybe you can help us out with this going forward, how the petitioner in this last case had some additions, and it was hard for me to find out where they fit into, that 1 through 15. And I know you're okay with accepting those modifications, but...
Yeah, with regards to those modifications, they didn't really involve a condition of approval. I guess they were a result of conditions of approval. So he was making changes based off of conditions that I put on the plat, not necessarily changing conditions that were on the plat.
Okay.
So it was a little bit awkward as to how to handle that. I mean, I suppose we could have put it into drafting changes, but I think in this particular case, just stating for the record that we are approving these amendments is fine, and as long as we have it on the record, we're okay there.
And I noticed that one where they talked about specifically modifying lot 60 to mirror lot 63 or whatever. I don't think we stated that on record, but if you're okay with putting that in, additionally.
Well, I believe we're on record right now, but no, we're not.
No.
Well, the hearing's over, but yeah.
Sorry, the case.
The case is over, yeah.
I would have to recuse myself again.
Okay. I just know we didn't mention that, but we did state that, changes subject, that the
Sure.
petitioner presented. So as long as you capture all those.
No, I'll make sure that it's reflected on the plat, absolutely.
Great.
Any other board members' comments? We all get to speak our piece. Or I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. We're adjourned, and happy holidays. Get lots of them between now and our next meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.